Today we're at the GRN Group Luge World Cup on the natural track at Deutschnofen in Italy. We'll meet up with South Tyrol luge stars Patrick Pignotta and Evelyn Lantana, and we'll be showing you the best luge action ahead of the World Championships. It's the third time that the 4,000 strong community of Deutschnofen in South Tyrol is hosting a stage of the Luge World Cup on natural track. On the morning of the decisive day in the doubles, South Tyrol's Florian Clara talks us through a ride of the full sweep.
Let's take a look at the track here in Deutschnofen. It's lovely and it's our home track. This is the start. A flat one that requires a powerful launch before you enter the first slight left-hand bend. Lightly apply the brakes before entering the first turn, a flat right-hand bend. It's difficult to manoeuvre. Then we enter the second turn, get back on the brakes before going into a sharp left turn, so you take the momentum with you. On we go into Gruber S, downwards into Fosel S, the most difficult part of the track where you have to take the most risks. If you've built the momentum from the top, the speed really picks up here. Then you enter a section where you have to brake twice. Lightly on the brakes first, don't cut across too early, position the sled to the left. After that, it's just a flat out run to the finish, and then you're across the line.
Well, the doubles are first up on the 871 metre long track. Before they start, let's take a quick look at the overall World Cup standings. Alexander Igorov and Peter Popov of Russia are in the lead ahead of Patrick Pignotta and Florian Clara of Italy, and Austria's Dominik Holzknecht and Christian Regensberger. Because of the warm temperatures, the race will be decided on one run in order to preserve the track for the singles competition. So all concentration is placed on one run. Who will cope with the pressure best? Andrei Laschak and Damian Vanacek enter the race wearing bib number 2. The Poles are taking part in the World Cup for the first time this year and haven't practiced on ice very often so far, but that doesn't stop them from finding some good rhythm in the middle part of the track after encountering some minor issues higher up. They overcome Fosel S like veterans and clock 1:02.03. It's a good time considering the conditions, but there are likely to be faster runs out there later on. Rupert Brugler and Tobias Unger are waiting to start their run. The Austrians' expectations have risen following their first World Cup podium finish in Lens. The duo from Salzburg and Tyrol respectively get off to a strong start and immediately find a smooth rhythm and are staying composed. Their equipment setup appears to be right on point. They're ahead at the penultimate interval, avoiding any mistakes in the lower part of the track, particularly in the tool turn, and Brugler and Angera reach the finish 35 hundredths of a second faster than Laschak and Vanacek. First place for the Austrians for the time being. Now it's the Russians Pavel Poshnev and Ivan Lazarev. They finished third overall in last year's World Cup, but they haven't got into their stride yet this season. In fact, they didn't even get past qualifying in Las. It's a good start from them today, but they've already lost almost a second on leaders Brugler and Angera in the middle section. A clean line past the spectators and through Fosel S, but they aren't able to make up such time in the final section, and with a time of 1:02.18, it's third place as things stand for the Russians. So can Christoph Regensberger and Dominik Holzknecht knock their teammates off their perch at the top of the leaderboard? Well, the two Austrians aren't well positioned in the first corner, but they're already 6 hundredths of a second behind Brugler and Angera at the second. But then Regensberger and Holzknecht step it up again, take a quick and aggressive line. It's the new best time at the final interval. This will be close. Can the Tyrol pair take the lead? But no, it's not to be. 3 hundredths of a second separate Regensberger and Holzknecht from top spot. They're second for now, but the two best pairs are still at the top of the track. And the first of those to go are Patrick Pignotta and Florian Clara of Italy. It's not the quickest of starts, but the successful duo quickly get into a good position. And it's clear to see the Pignotta and Clara want to prove that they're better than they showed at the last round of the World Cup. They go all out right from the start. Pignotta and Clara fly across the soft ice flawlessly and in perfect harmony. And they look to have found the perfect materials too, as they increase their lead over Brugler and Angera with every metre. And with a huge advantage of 2.48 seconds, they're now in first place. A hugely impressive demonstration of their quality. Can Alexander Igorov and Petr Popov offer anything in reply? Well, full concentration from Igorov and Popov, who lead the overall World Cup standings as it stands. The Russians get the second best start of the day, but what magic can this experienced pair produce on this soft ice? Last year's World Cup runners-up negotiate the first turns with Star, but they're already a second back by interval number 2. What a run it was by Pignata and Klara. Igorov and Popov's run remains flawless. Perhaps they're lacking just a touch of aggression. They keep on losing time. Now a second and a half behind. Victory now looks to be a mission impossible for the Russian pair from Kandalashka. And indeed they finished 2.32 seconds off the pace. Second place for Igorov and Popov.
Things went really well for us today. The second run was cancelled, so we knew that we had to give it our all in the first one. We sort of thought it ourselves last week. We did our best right from the off today, though. We knew that we had to be aggressive out of the blocks because the Russians are very strong.
Eravamo molto carichi alla partenza e sapevamo che dovevamo dare tutto perché I russi sono anche molto forti.
So it's a 31st World Cup win for Pignata and Klara, and the third in a row in Deutschnofen. While Burgler and Angerer finish on the podium for the second time in a row, Regensburger and Holzneck miss out by just 0.03 of a second. The overall World Cup standings remain very exciting indeed. Pignata, Klara and Igorov Popov are joint top with the same number of points. Become even colder. Winter temperatures on the morning of the decisive day in the singles competition. First up, it's the women, and here are how things look in the overall World Cup standings. And in front, the Russian Supremo, Katerina Lavrentieva, followed by Italians Greta Pingera and Evelyn Lentala, who are level on points. Interestingly enough, Evelyn Lentala of Italy never wanted to become a national track luger. It's only thanks to one of her friend's powers of persuasion that she now puts all of her passion into this sport.
I always liked the speed and feeling of doing a run. I saw that I could set myself goals and I was determined to achieve them. I think that it's good for the mind and soul, and I get the feeling that it's made me a better person.
Natural track lugers can train on ice in the summer months. Evelyn Lentala's focus is then on her job as a waitress.
I focus mainly on my work during the summer. I do preparation work for luging in terms of conditioning, and then my attention switches to luging in the winter. My job is put to one side and I really go about competing professionally.
23-year-old Lentala has been a luger for 10 years. These days she's a senior member of the Italian team, which contains young talent like 19-year-old Greta Pingera.
I may be the oldest, but I still fit in well with the youngsters. I notice that they look up to me a bit. They watch me and see that I have a little more experience. I suppose they look at me the same way I view Ekaterina Lavrentieva, who's 10 years older than me. I want to have her experience and the ease of which she does things so that I can prepare for a race or specific circumstances as quickly as possible.
And so back to the race here in Italy, the excitement growing ahead of the women's second and decisive run. After the first run, it's Katerina Lavrentieva leading the way. She's followed by 3 Italians, Tina Unterberger and the best of the Germans, Michaela Mara. Michaela Mara is in 6th after the first run. She takes to the track again, full of determination. Can she make up a few places with a courageous run? Well, she's 18/100ths of a second slower than the current leader, Teresa Mara, at the start, but she's still 3/10ths up. That gap grows to just 63/100ths by the second interval. But then Mara loses her rhythm and is now just 2/10ths ahead. What can she do in the final turn? Mara takes the lead with an overall time of 1:55.04 after 2 runs. She's 53/100ths of a second in front of her teammate Teresa Mara.
Tons of angle and smoke on course.
And showmanship.
Look at that!
Judged on execution and style. It's high-powered,
Tremendous run right here.
high-skilled, and high-speed entertainment.
Man, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Outdo, outperform, outmaneuver. Taking motorsport to the extreme. Formula Drift 2015 on Edge Sport. Unpredictable winds and rollers. Teams and racers from all over the world descend to battle for the championship.
We scratch, we claw, we do whatever it's got to take.
All allies joining new teams and all rivalries resurfacing.
We fight all day to win the championship.
Are you ready? F1 H2O Powerboat Championship on Edge Sport. Oval dirt tracks.
Here we go, going into that first turn.
4 riders. Over 4 laps in 1 minute.
They're literally throwing the bikes at each other here.
Featuring the world's best speedway riders.
Magnificent ride. You cannot take your eyes off any of them.
Going head to head for one of the greatest prizes motorsport has to offer.
That was superb.
Speedway World Cup on Edge Sport.
Tina Unterberger, who's 4th in the overall World Cup standings, is in 5th place after her first run. She tried out a new runner setup in her first run, but they didn't quite work out, so the Austrian now has to go all out back on her old sled. Unterberger has started well. She extends her lead from 400ths to half a second at interval 2 with a courageous run. It's looking good for the lightweight Unterberger. How far can she go today? The 28-year-old is much faster in her second run than her first and sits top of the leaderboard for the time being with an overall time of 1:54.28, 36 hundredths faster than Mara. Greta Pinguera next up, 4th after the first run, which was 62 hundredths of a second quicker than Unterberger. A reassuring lead. However, the 19-year-old really has to give it her all, as Unterberger had a great run. Pinguera takes a clean line and her lead increases to 88 hundredths. She grazes the boards with her hand, but it doesn't seem to have ruffled her feathers. She tries to take on the track aggressively, and she does so successfully. That's the fastest run so far. Pinguera has a lead of 82 hundredths of a second over Unterberger, but she'll need a bit of luck to stay on the podium, as there are 3 riders to come, and they all went quicker than her in the first. The next starter is Evelyn Lantala, and she's aiming to confirm a place on the podium. She only has 12 hundredths of a second on Pinguera. Lantala didn't really get into her stride in the first run, but she's made a good start this time. It's a really exciting battle between the 2 teammates, the experienced Lantala versus the youngster Pinguera. Lantala's in front at the second interval, but her lead has dropped by 6 hundredths of a second. What a race this is turning out to be. Lantala is taking a fantastic line in the final section, and she's extended her lead to 34 hundredths. Through the finish, 1:52.89 her overall time, which means that she's 57 hundredths of a second ahead of Pinguera and is now guaranteed a place on the podium. The competition continues with the local girl, 19-year-old Sarah Bachmann. Once again, it's a clash of the Italians. Will Bachmann be able to defend second place? Straight from the starting block, she finds herself on the perfect course. She's 24 hundredths ahead of Evelyn Lantala. Bachmann's rhythm isn't great though, and she's behind at the second interval. 12 hundredths behind, soon grows to 32. Bachmann needs to fight hard until the end to retain her place on the podium. It's the 3rd fastest run, putting her in second place overall for now. She steadied the ship in the final section and managed to secure her 2nd World Cup podium finish. There she is, Ekaterina Lavrantieva. She's been on the podium 79 times through her career. However, she's not at full strength today. She's only just about recovered from a feverish bout of flu. A stunning first run saw her build up a lead of almost a second over current leader Evelyn Lantala. But Lavrantieva only needs to get to the finish line safely and in a controlled manner. The 33-year-old is doing that so far. At the 3rd interval, she's on a par with Lantala's second run. Fastest first run, fastest second run. Even a half-fit Lavrentieva is almost unstoppable. She wins her 52nd World Cup by more than a second.
I'm delighted. I wasn't feeling great. This track is always a good one for me though. I didn't make any mistakes. I made sure that I put all my mental strength and power into the first run. It was clear what I had to do in my second run. I had to give it my all to have any chance of coming second, and I managed that. I saw after the first run that I was quite a way behind Ekaterina, and I wasn't too happy, but I'm delighted with the final result.
So Lantala finishes second for the second time this season behind Lavrentieva and ahead of her teammate Sarah Bachmann. Greta Pingera and Tina Unterberger follow in 4th and 5th respectively. In the overall standings, Lavrentieva moves further out in front ahead of Lantala and Pingera. The men's overall competition looks like this. Italy's Patrick Pigneter tops the standings, followed by fellow countryman Florian Clara and Austria's Thomas Kammerlander.
My name is Patrick Pigneter.
My name is Patrick Pignetta. I'm 27 years old. I come from Vol, which lies in the Seiseralm holiday region, and I'm a natural track luger.
The South Tyrolean got into the sport at a young age. His father, former world champion Raymond Pigneter, took him on his first run when he was just 9 years old.
Luge is a bit of a tradition in our village and has been for a while. There was a good group of us there, about 5 or 6 guys my age. We've helped push each other to do better, and then the titles started to come, and I've never really asked myself why I do what I do. I just enjoy it, and that's why I remain committed to it still.
He certainly dominates the sport with 38 World Cup stage wins as well as 9 overall World Cup titles. So what motivates an athlete who seemingly has the beating of them all?
Sometimes it must look like I just ride to the finish line and win, but I'm rarely the quickest in training, and then I always improve at a race. I sometimes ask myself why that's the case. I don't win each race by a second, it's always by a small margin. As a result, my motivation levels don't decrease.
Well, there's no reason for a lack of motivation here, but Pigneter is yet to lose, but the conditions are this year rather difficult.
That's the beauty of our sport. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's warm, sometimes the track is hard, and sometimes it's softer. It does make a difference. Every athlete has to adjust to the conditions. For some it will be harder, for some it will be easier, and that's part of the challenge.
Well, 23 men will be taking on that challenge in today's second run. One man won't be competing in the final, however. Austrian Thomas Kammerlander, who currently lies 3rd in the overall standings. He was leading during the first run when his sled caught an edge. It was a bad crash, but thankfully there was good news. He only suffered from bruising and a sprained ankle ligament. However, there's a chance he could miss his home World Championships. Well, after the first run, it was an Italian leading the way. Surprisingly, not Pigneter, but rather Alex Gruber. A real challenge arrived after the women's competition when suddenly it began to snow. So how would Alexander Igorov cope with the new conditions? The Russian is also successful in the doubles and he's known for being good from the starting block. After his first run, he was 37/100ths of a second quicker than the current leader, German George Maurer. Igorov had started strongly, slowly extending his lead. However, as he enters the first S section of the course, he almost loses it all and is just 14/100ths in front. A smooth line in the middle section sees him rebuild his lead to 29/100ths. The 29-year-old flies through the tool turn and is on course to hold an advantage of almost half a second over George Maurer. And the new leader is indeed Alexander Igorov. His second run was slow, but that's understandable as the snowfall softens the track. Local boy Florian Clara was in 5th place after the first run and was 29/100ths faster than Igorov. The six-time overall World Cup doubles winner picked up his first podium finish in the individual event earlier this year at the parallel race in Kutai. He would no doubt love to repeat that feat at his home event. The 26-year-old added to his lead in the early part of the course. However, his exit from first last has seen it get eaten into once again. So at the third interval, he's 36 hundredths of a second in front. He looks a bit shaky in the final section, where you can overdo the brakes if you're not careful, and crosses the line just 15 hundredths ahead of Igorov with a final time of 1:52.37. It's going to be a big ask to finish on the podium today. There's still 4 competitors to go. Next to go is the best placed Austrian Michael Scheichel, who's 42 hundredths of a second ahead of Clara after the first run. This season isn't going to plan so far for Scheichel, who finished third in last year's World Cup. He's negotiated the first 2 corners well. Will he make the podium here in Deutschnofen? Well, with conditions like this, anything's possible. At the midway point, he's 74 hundredths out in front, despite his lightweight actually being a disadvantage in these conditions. The 25-year-old then starts looking a little bit rocky. Still a great run from the Austrian, and he crosses the line in good time. He's 1.17 seconds out in front. That was the quickest run so far. Well, the result's almost in. Just 3 athletes left to go. First up, Patrick Pignitzer, the undisputed star of luge and unbeaten on this course. However, today he lies in third after the first run, but is almost half a second ahead of Scheichel. Pignitzer isn't known for starting strongly and often loses time at the top, just like at the last World Cup event in Laas. After the first interval, his advantage is still 17 hundredths of a second. Will he miss out on a podium today? His quality is shining through in the final turns though, hardly braking, flying towards the finish line. And Pignitzer's final lead over Scheichel is huge, 77 hundredths of a second. His overall time, 1:50.43. Will either Gruber or Blasbikler go quicker? Well, one thing's for certain, there will be an Italian winner. So Anton Blasbikler starts in heavy snow. The wily old fox knows just how much difficult conditions can upset your rhythm. The 42-year-old has a lead of just 3 hundredths of a second over his colleague, who's 15 years his junior. At the second interval, he's increased his advantage to 32 hundredths. Blasbikler last finished on the podium 4 years ago and hasn't won for a decade. So will he rewrite history today? He's losing some time, but no, just 24th hundredths up. What a climax this is. And we have a new leader. Anton Blasbikler is just 10 hundredths of a second out in front. Pignitzer has been beaten in Deutschnofen. Blasbikler's stunning run has seen him guarantee a place on the podium. There's just one man left, Alex Gruber. Will he thwart Blasbikler at the last? Gruber was a slender 3 hundredths of a second quicker than the current leader in the first run. Alex Gruber is risking everything. Brakes are for losers, must be his motto. It doesn't seem to be enough though at this point, with a 22-year-old just 2 hundredths of a second in front as he enters first last. What a thrilling men's final this is. The gap has increased, 16 hundredths at the third interval. Gruber's going all out. His sharp blades powering to a finish. And here he comes to the line. 1:50.17, that's it. Alex Gruber's second World Cup victory. It's an all-Italian podium here. Gruber ahead of Blasbikler and Pignitzer.
Of course, it's emotional when you beat the luge master. For the past few years, it's been my aim to finally finish ahead of Patrick, and today I managed that. We all pushed ourselves to the limit.
Well, is that going to knock Pignitzer's confidence just a few days before the World Championships?
Certainly not. Instead, I see it as a positive. It gives me incentive, that final bit of motivation.
Well, fourth place goes to Michael Scheichel from Austria, followed by Italy's Florian Clara. Patrick Pignitzer still leads the overall standings, with Alex Gruber jumping into second place. The next luge action will be at the World Championships in San Sebastian.